Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Ours is a place where dreams take flight, voices are heard, and stories are shared. This is where cultures meet, connections are formed, and ideas are transformed into action. This is your destination for authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations. We're where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover our world of education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our USA Global TV channel and download our USA Global TV app. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. With heartfelt thanks to our executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, music scored by Yifei Tang from Cloud Road Music, creative direction by Paul Garcia, and I'm Al Cini, and I'm very proud to be part of the USA Global TV and Radio family. So join us here at USA Global TV and Radio. Make us your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Thank you for being a part of our global community. Let's inspire together.
Hello, and welcome to the Persistence Payoff Show. We're here on USA Global TV and Radio. I'm your host, Kimberly Schafer. I'm a first-time inventor and entrepreneur. I'm the inventor of the Ring Thing, which is a waterproof patented ring holder. And I will say that persistence is a part of my daily journey as I launch this new chapter in my life. I'm really inspired by talking with people about their own journeys with persistence and seeing what we can learn from each other and share inspiration and information. That brings me to our guest today, who I think has some really incredible stories of persistence and inspiration. Annmarie SanSevero is an author. She has one book published and another book coming out. She was originally born in New York and moved to the South in high school, and she writes across genres. She writes fantasy, science fiction, steampunk, and mystery. Her stories are about hope, courage, resilience, and her goal is to inspire her readers to realize that they can do more than survive, but they can thrive. So I'm really excited to talk with her and learn about her own journey with persistence and resilience. So please help me welcome Annmarie SanSevero to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And, this is an exciting time that you have a book published and a new book coming out soon. But before we talk about those, I would love to hear about your own journey and how you became an author. Was writing a passion of yours since childhood, or is that something that developed as life developed?
It was both. I started as a rabid reader as a young person and would kind of escape to the library all the time. And while some of my friends were in their rooms pretending to be rock stars, I was pretending to either be a rockette or writing a book and talking to kids about my book and things like that. And then I found out the Rockettes had a height requirement, so that killed that dream. And I started focusing in on my other loves. And I'll be honest, I'm a complete nerd, and I have not met a subject I haven't enjoyed learning about. So I have, I think, 11 bookshelves in my house filled with history and science and all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's really great. And to see your own dreams and your own passion come to life. And now along the way, how old were you when your first story or your first book were published?
My first story, I was 55 when it was published. So it's really recent. I've been working toward this goal for a few years now. I kept reading and kept imagining stories, but because I was a single mom and I had 4 kids, there wasn't a lot of time. I know other single moms have done it while their kids were young. I just was struggling with other things as well. And so it took me longer. So I had, when I was 55, I had a short story come out in Weird Wilderness, Cryptid Bestiary, which is an anthology, which is a collection of short stories from a group of authors. And it was a charity anthology, and all the money from it went to support scholarships for writers. And I was a recipient of one of those scholarships. And so I submit something to them every year because I'm very grateful for the work they do. And so I got to write about, they have very, very specific themes each year. And the year I wrote a story for them, it was a cryptid, which is like, for those who don't know what a cryptid is, it's like Bigfoot, Mothman, Loch Ness Monster, all those kind of urban legends. And it also had to have an epistolary element. And so I chose the Fook monster from Arkansas. I live in Arkansas now. And the Champy, the lake monster in New York, because I grew up in New York. And I had them as two kid cryptids who were pen pals. And one wanted to have a human friend more than anything in the world. And the other one wanted to be a humanologist when he grew up. And so he was giving him all this scientific advice on how to be friends with a human. That was absolutely horrible. Like worst advice, kind of like Amelia Bedelia, but with cryptids. And so,
oh my gosh. Well, and I love that you're giving back, that you got the scholarship, but you're also contributing and submitting stories every year to help other authors. So I think that's great. Kudos to you for that. And
thank you.
You mentioned having your interest in writing, but you had 4 children that you were raising as a single mom. And I think, talk about persistence. That's I'm sure you experience that in many ways. And would you say that your journey with persistence itself has changed over time, or do you feel like that core quality in yourself has always been there, or have you seen that change as your life has developed?
I think it evolves as we mature. At first, persistence was just survival and a matter of getting one day ahead of the other. Every once in a while, I will play this song by a group called Jack's Mannequin called Swim. And it's almost like just keep swimming one more day. The horizon is right there. And so, but as I've matured and learned a lot of things, and part of it is I know I have people watching me now, and I have people that write me and go, oh, I look up to you so much and you're so inspiring. And then I'm like, oh no, now there's pressure to be inspiring, if that makes sense.
It does, yes.
Yeah, I am.
Yes.
And I always had like my kids watching. And so I wouldn't give up because of that. But this felt like, it felt more pressure because my kids knew my circumstances. And so if I had stumbled, they would probably be more forgiving than people who don't know my circumstances. And so I was like, I have to be tough. I have to be, if that makes sense.
Yes, totally. Absolutely. And I want to be sensitive about this topic, so we can just talk about it as much as you're comfortable. But I believe that you've had a journey with cancer as well, which requires its own persistence to get through the diagnosis and the treatments and all of that. So can you talk with us a little bit about that journey and also how that has shown up for you in your writing?
So I've always been like the medical freak for some reason. And this is actually, I'm currently in the middle of treatments for my second cancer, and they're different cancers. So when my first child was born, I got diagnosed with thyroid cancer, which was way easier than the one I'm in now. They just give you some radiation to swallow, and it kills all the cancer. And they take out your thyroid, but and so I think I would say I learned some persistence from that because I was pregnant when I got it. And my first 2 trimesters, I wasn't gaining weight. I felt good. My third trimester, I felt like I was dying. Like I could barely function. And I ballooned, like I gained 30 pounds. And they rotated our OBGYNs, and one of mine was just like, you're eating too much. You have to stop. And I kept telling him, I'm not. I have no energy to eat. I am not hungry. And no one would listen to me. Mm-hmm. And then I went, I had my child, and I felt like the worst mother ever because I was so exhausted. And I felt like all I was doing was keeping him alive. And I grew up idolizing like Caroline Ingalls in Little House on the Prairie. And I wanted to be that mother. And so I already felt like a failure. Like I couldn't do it. And then I noticed a lump on my neck, and I went to my doctor and he was like, oh, it's probably nothing. Don't worry about it. And of course, we're concerned about your weight. And so eventually I had to insist they look at it. And so that's when I learned you have to stand up for yourself, even with people who know. I mean, doctors know more than we do. I agree with that. But sometimes they get in a box. And so I finally had to put my foot down, and they did that test, and they went, oh, this is a tumor. And so it was just one of those things. And then that was okay. And I went for years with no cancer, but other health issues. I've had 14 surgeries and had serious hemoglobin problems where I was having blood transfusions and iron infusions. And then over Christmas of this past year, I got diagnosed with a new cancer. And I remember talking to the doctor and going, I've done cancer. Like, I did it already. And I didn't think you could get more than one. I thought if I got it again, it would be the same one. And he said, no, I've known patients to get 4 different cancers. And I was like, you know what? I'm competitive, but I'm going to let that title go. I don't need to get more than that. So my journey in writing, because of all those things, and was slower, and with 4 kids that I love more than life itself. It is. I was also working 3 part-time jobs trying to take care of them. And so it was a lot of different things that were pulling at my time, including my own abilities with how tired I was. So, but when you have something that's important to you, I think you don't give up on it. And I would constantly dream and how I wanted to do it. And at first, I could only do 15 minutes of writing a day. And I think it wasn't until my youngest was in junior high that I finally decided I want to fulfill this dream. And if I keep waiting, it'll never happen. And so I do 15 minutes a day. As they got older, I could do more. Did I answer your question at all? Or am I just
You did. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I got something in my throat.
I choked you up.
You did. You absolutely answered it. So sorry. Well, that's really, I'm so interested. I also had thyroid cancer when I was 33. And I know that feeling of, they tell you, mine was just found on a incidental exam where they felt the lump, and I was like, I don't need to do anything. And they did it, and they said, oh, you're 33, it's not going to be anything. And sure enough, that same doctor had to call me back and say, yes, it's thyroid cancer. So I'm with you on the shock of that, and how it can be unexpected. And I think with thyroid cancer, one of the weird things is like other cancers have like a 5-year survival, that if you can get through the 5 years, you're considered cured of it. But thyroid cancer, even with our thyroids removed, it can always come back somewhere else, like for life. And so there's not that 5-year celebration, like, oh boy, I made it to 5 years. But certainly every day is a celebration with that.
Yeah. And they did warn me, even with this new cancer, that the 5 years is a good milestone, but never count on it being gone. So
yes. Oh, I'm sure. So I'm so interested about your stories because I think you have a really wonderful website, and your website mentions that part of what you do with your writing is you want to encourage your readers to have empathy and also to know that they can do more than survive. And so I'd love to know what your thoughts are about encouraging people to learn about empathy through their reading and through your writing.
That's honestly, aside from getting to know people outside of your circle, one of the best ways to develop empathy is by reading, because you get to see them in their world, like legitimate, not weird voyeurism. Okay. And so you're getting to see people exist in something that's outside of your own experience, and you're getting to feel their emotions with them and know that that people who are different than you can be wonderful people. In fact, the middle grade book I have coming out next year starts off with these 2 boys who are like nemesis at school. Mm. And they each realize at some point they had preconceived notions about each other that weren't true. Now, whether they're mature enough to do anything about that, you'll have to just read the story. But
Yes.
I loved the idea of putting people who are misunderstood together in stories.
Yes, I love that. And when you're writing those books, are you basing the characters on people that you know, or is it a compilation of people who you know, or is it more your own configuration of people and how you envision them?
It's a complete amalgam of that. I have like a crazy on steroids imagination. So sometimes it's just something I've imagined. But most of the time I see someone, I might not even know them, but I notice a certain quirk about them, the way they're walking or the way they talk or what's important to them. And I'll just make a mental note of it. And then more likely I'm writing it down in my notebook because I keep something with me at all times. And sometimes it's people I know, but never them as a whole. Just pieces of them, because I wouldn't want a situation where someone would read a story and go, she wrote about me, and maybe they don't like that character. And so the one exception of that has been, there's this young man, and I'm going to just say hi to him right now, young Jacalyn, who is just a remarkable little boy. And or now he's getting to be a young man. He probably would not appreciate me saying little boy. And I wrote his father to make sure I had his name right. And I was like, I'm going to make him a cool character in a story, because I like encouraging kids that are doing good things. So.
Yes. And you started your writing or publishing journey later in life with your first story at 55. Do you feel like you have this like big wave of things that you want to write now that the doors are open, the gates are open?
Yes. And I have a database of stories, and that I plan on writing. And then I keep having more and more ideas come. So I'm constantly jotting them down so I don't forget them. I also have the first thing I have published right now is a short story collection. And each of those stories won between honorable mention or semi-finalist with Writers of the Future. And so I took the ones that I haven't had time to sell yet, because you can, after they judge them, unless you're the winner, you can sell them. The ones that I hadn't placed in a market, I put together in this collection. And I've had so many people read them and writing to me going, you're making this story into a full novel, right? And then someone else will go, oh, how about this story? This one should be a full novel. And so at some point I'm going to expand some of those. I have to fulfill my current contract. I have a 3-book deal with a middle grade publisher right now that I have to fulfill. And I've got a YA that I'm working on already. And then I'm going to start filling out some of those short stories and hope my brain can calm down until I get all that.
Yes. You mentioned a YA. What is that?
Young adult.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so the middle grades, like the upper elementary school and some younger junior high, depending on their reading level. And YA is more like the the teenagers kind of thing. And a lot of adults read YA too. And so, and this is the story that is for them is a genetically engineered society of twins. Anyway, I don't want to give, because it might change as I write it. I'm outlining it right now, and I don't want to say it. And people are like, I can't wait for that. And when they read it, it's like, that's not what she said.
Yes. Well, I'm curious to know your journey with persistence in your own writing. And you kind of touched on it, where things can change. And do you have self-talk that you use, or do you ever start to go down a rabbit hole of like, oh, I wanted this story to be about X and now it's turning into Y, and I'm, how do you persist through the whole process?
It's so funny you asked that, because just 2 days ago, I posted this meme about someone saying, you're the writer, you control the characters in the story. And then there's that guy who plays Thor going,
Yes.
And so, and I had horrible, I'm sure you've heard the term imposter syndrome before. And, and so because I go to this writers conference every year that's filled with amazingly successful writers, I feel like the little itty bitty baby writer who has no idea, and then I was listening to one of them who has multiple, like double-digit bestsellers. And he was talking to me about his imposter syndrome and the days he feels like he doesn't know what he's doing. And that was really helpful to know we're all like that. Every one of us feels like that. So that helps. I will say I've had horribly embarrassing moments where, my first novel, that's when I first wrote it, I was so proud of that thing. I thought it was amazing. And I sent it out way before it was ready to be sent out. And got tons of rejections, of course. I mean, everybody gets rejections. In fact, one of my mentors, Kevin J. Anderson, he does the Dune movies. He has lots of New York Times bestsellers. He had a trophy for having the most rejections of any writer. And so, and he's quite successful. So that's, I think, not a bad thing. But as I grew in my craft and I went back and read that first draft of that first story, I was like, oh, I hope I never run into those agents again. That I cannot believe I sent that to them and thought it was good. And so, but I think that's just the process of learning. And I noticed that I did a lot of volunteer work with the Arkansas Youth Symphony Orchestra. And they have 3 levels of orchestras. And I went along with my kids as they moved up in those orchestras. And if you don't take the time to listen to those squeaky violins just trying to learn how to get a straight sound, you never get the gorgeous symphonies that come in the advanced orchestra. And so I think all of those bad words, not bad words like naughty words, sorry. All of those less mature words in writing are evidence of practice and evidence of growth. So that helps me because every time I write something that I think is disappointment to me, I'm like, well, I improved my craft. So, yes. And that's all I can be. Those are practice words.
Yes. Well, and I'm also struck when you talk about your first book and looking at your first article and published story and looking back and thinking, oh my gosh, that wasn't all that I thought that it was. But that's its own lesson in persistence. Like at that time, you were doing the best you could and you believed in yourself and you went for it. And, it's like at every step of the way, it's so important to do that, I think, to have that belief in ourselves and just jump in and do it. Might not be perfect, but we're doing it. And next time, as you just said, we'll be a little bit better. We'll learn something from every step. And I used to work at University of California at San Diego for a long time. And one of the doctors I worked with actually had a page on his website of all of the grants that he submitted that were rejected and all of the manuscripts and papers, scientific papers that he submitted that were rejected, just so that the young trainees would know, like, look, my publications are 100, but I've got 700 that were turned down, and so it's just, right. You're right. Those are the steps that help us grow. And I'm curious to know, you write steampunk, and I'm curious to know what that is.
Okay. And usually I include that in another genre too with it. Steampunk is, this helps. Do you see these kind of gears and stuff on my necklace?
Yes.
So if you think like Victorian age, but with steam technology that they didn't really have, like mech swords and airships and things like that. So kind of Victorian period with gears and on steroids kind of thing. And so you'll often see people, do you know what cosplaying is?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. You'll often see people cosplaying as a steampunk woman where they'll have the top hat and the goggles and the corset and, all that stuff. So that's steampunk. And I'm sure there is someone out there that's like, man, Annmarie, there's such a more concise definition of that you could have given. But right now, that's the best words I had for you.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I can totally visualize it. I'm seeing it right there as you're talking about it. So yeah.
That helps. Yeah. It's not my focus genre. Most of the time, I do science fiction and fantasy. And no matter what genre it is, there's a mystery in it for me. I'm a mystery addict. If you knew how many hours I wasted on British mysteries television. So that's just part. So it's ingrained in everything I write. But one of the things I like about all of those genres is people struggle. And what I like about science fiction, especially, is the idea that something we write might lead to something better in the future. So that's kind of my fun in that. I take technology we kind of have and then imagine something awesome we could have with it and go from there. So.
Wow, it's so interesting, like, and the breadth of your abilities to write across those genres. And I'm curious to know, as you get inspired to write a story, do you go through phases where, okay, now I'm writing science fiction, okay, now I'm in my steampunk phase, or do they get kind of mixed up depending on the story? Like, does the story determine the genre, or are you aiming for a particular genre as you write a story?
So that's hard to answer because it's been different many times. Sometimes the story absolutely determines the genre. For instance, the first story in my short story collection, The Butterfly Stroke, it's the title story. It's about a quadriplegic girl who used to be an Olympic swimmer, who now has lost her entire identity because she can't even walk, let alone swim. And I had just read about Elon Musk's Neuralink. It's when it first was being approved for human trials. And that story had to be science fiction because I took his Neuralink and I was thinking we could probably do more than just make their eyes control a computer screen. What if we took a stent, a wireless stent, attached it on their spine beneath the brake and let it communicate wirelessly with the Neuralink so they could actually walk? And so that had to be science fiction. Another story I had was, it was mostly, I make a point to enter Writers of the Future every quarter until I either win or pro out. I'm getting close to proing out, so hopefully I win soon. But I was running late on a deadline and I had to write a story. I had to get it in to meet their deadline. And so I just took all these ideas I'd recently seen. I'd watched a Babylon 5 about this. I read a Dresden Files about this. And then all of a sudden I'd seen a Death in Paradise episode where this was pretty morbid, but the guy had killed his wife and he had her skeleton in his science classroom as a display. And nobody knew it was her, of course. But and so I was mixing all these ideas together. And then I thought about, a bone, a femur, supernatural detective, all these things were coming together. And all of a sudden the name Luke Skywalker came into my head because of the skeleton thing. And I laughed. And because it made me laugh, I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. It's a supernatural detective who has an assistant who is a haunted femur, and he nicknames him Luke Skywalker. And from there, I had to make up the story. But it was like one of those crazed, I have 24 hours to write the story kind of thing. So I was mashing all this stuff together. And then other times I know from the start, I'm working on something right now that is fantasy, straight fantasy. And I know that, and that's how it's working. So I don't know if I answered your question well enough, but
you did. Yes, that was great. And I'm curious, are you ever drawn to other genres? Like, do you feel like that's your core set of genres, or do you feel ever like, oh, what about a romantic comedy, or how do genres enter your set?
So I go to Superstars Writing Conference every year, and Jonathan Mayberry is one of the speakers there there. And we had a conversation where he said, never say no to an opportunity, even if it's not your genre. And he got approached by the people from the Wizard of Oz IP, and they were putting together an anthology and wanted him to write a short story for it. And so he's a horror writer and had just written in his wheelhouse. He took Tin Man, gave him the heart of a serial killer, and he went on a rampage kind of thing. And then they came back to him. I don't think Jonathan will mind me sharing this because he shared it at Superstars. And they came back to him and said, this was a family anthology. And so he had to rewrite the story. And he was like, okay, I can do this. I can do a family friendly story. And he ended up writing about one of the little flying monkeys that had an injured wing and had to learn how to get along with their injured wing. And they loved it so much that it's now canon in the Wizard of Oz universe. And I actually think, because I think that's the story that got him the opening with Black Panther, because they saw he could write outside his genre and offered for him to work on a comic with the Black Panther IP. And so I try not to limit my genre. I don't know that I'd be great at horror, because sometimes I feel like I have enough horror in my life that I don't need to, add to it. But I did recently try romantasy for the first time. I've submitted a romantasy short story, which mashes romance and fantasy, obviously. I don't do romance very well, but because Jonathan advised me never say no to anything, I made an effort at this, and I'll find out in a few months if they like it or not. So I will not say no to any. Well, I'm not going to write erotica. I'm just not going to. So that's the one. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yes, that makes sense. I understand that. And do you feel that your journey with cancer is now showing up in your writing? Do you feel the influence of those experiences in your writing?
Yeah, I feel like everything is research. That is something I've learned from my mentors. Everything I experience is research. And when I just finished radiation and back on chemo. But when I first was in the radiation, there were these cool machines and they were doing all these things. And I was like, okay, I need to know how all of this works. And my doctor would tell me all the details about it. And those go in my stories. And my short story in the collection, Memory Ghost, was because of my blood transfusions. The first one I got, I was watching this stranger's blood enter my body. And it was so creepy. And I thought, they should have bought me dinner or something. I don't know. It felt so personal. And then I started thinking, what if it was something even more personal, like our minds? And so I wrote a story about a woman who had a partial brain graft and started experiencing the memories of her donor. And then she found out the donor had been murdered through those memories. So she uses the experience with the donor's memories to solve her murder. So everything plays in somehow, in some way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Do you have do you feel like there's a particular book or story that's in you that's waiting to come out, but you feel like you've got to get through some things before then? Or do you write in real time as they come to you?
I can't write in real time because I have like 7 stories in my brain right now. And I'm not a full-time writer yet. So I can only do one at a time. I do one novel and one short story at the same time. Now, obviously, I get several short stories in before that novel's done. But when I'm writing full time, man, I'm going to have to get a treadmill desk or something because I will just be planted in front of that computer.
Yes. Well, and I'd love to hear more about your new book that's coming out. Can you talk with us more about the title and about the content of it?
Yeah. So the one that's coming out next year is called Marked by Magic. Now, the one that's now, The Butterfly Stroke, it's for adults. It's a mixture of fantasy and sci-fi. This is for middle grade, which is for those who aren't familiar with how those break up. Think of the first Harry Potter book, that age group. Okay. And so this mixes steampunk that we talked about earlier and fantasy. And I put those together with a young boy who lives in a world that has rejected the kingdom of magic for what they call the more noble art of machines. Mm-hmm. And he grew up never knowing anything about his mother. No one's even allowed to talk about her. And it turns out that is because she was from that other kingdom. And her father didn't know that when they married. He found out after she died. And that betrayal to him, he felt it was a betrayal. His solution to that pain was to just block her out completely. But for Leif, the main character, he was like, that's still his mother. Like, he still wants to know about her. And then when he turns 12, a magical rune shows up on his wrist. Mm. And magic's illegal in this kingdom. So he was trying to figure out, I think this is old magic. I don't think we're supposed to use old magic. It's, we rejected that for very good reasons. And then, because they'd been indoctrinated their whole lives about why old magic's bad and why machines are good. And as he digs into this, he realized everything they've been teaching him is a lie. And he has to make some decisions. And then his dad goes missing while he's out on a mission for their high minister. And the only way for him to rescue his father is to learn the old magic that will cost him his father's love. And so he has to make a decision about that. And then how a lot of it is about prejudices and family relationships. And because he ends up on this little trek with his best friend and his school nemesis and a teacher who's a little bit quirky. And so, and they just have all this baggage that we all have. Like, we all have wonderful things going on with our families and hard things going on with our families. And Leif's dad's the national hero, and he worries he will never live up to his family name. Antony's very popular and successful, but he's in no doubt that his father's disappointed in him. And Tarek, who's the nemesis, feels like everybody is against him. And so he lashes out at everybody else. And so it's just this great dynamic of learning to accept people and realize they all have pain and how to do brave things. And at the end, they are completely different kids than they are at the beginning, stronger and better. And so,
wow. I love that. I mean, I think that's such great advice for all of us at any age, be brave. And so that's a perfect way for us to end our conversation today. This time has flown by, and I feel like I could have a lot more questions to ask you, but can you tell us, please, how people can connect with you? Where can they buy your books? How can they reach you directly?
Yes, I think you've been showing my website. And on my website, there it is. On my website, there's also a link to sign up for my author newsletter. I put exclusive content in my newsletters. I can release information faster on that than on my website. I don't spam. I do about one a month. And you know when things are going to be released and how to get them. And you get stories about my private life that most people don't get. And I'm also on Facebook, Annmarie SanSevero, author. They can connect with me there. But probably my newsletter is the way they can get more information about me on a regular basis.
All right. Thank you so much. This is so inspiring. And I wish you the very best with your treatment also for cancer. I hope that goes easily and smoothly. And thank you so much for sharing everything with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you. I end every show with a quote about persistence. And today is a quote from Maya Angelou, who said, "Courage is the most important of all the virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently." And I think that fits so well with our conversation today with Annmarie. And I thank her truly for being here today and talking with us. If you'd like to reach me, you can reach me directly through my website. It's ringthing.com is the website. It has an Instagram page, a link to the Instagram page and Facebook, and also an email address. You can email me directly at kimberly@ringthing.com. I would love to hear from you about any ideas you have, suggestions, or questions. We're here every other Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And I'd like to thank the network and also Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck for the opportunity. Thank you so much and take care. Bye-bye.
USA Global TV and Radio, home of the YouTube Silver Creator Award, proudly presents Just the Thing for Your Ring, introducing the patented Ring Thing, your premium personal ring holder to keep your ring safe, nearby, and avoid loss.
The Ring Thing just got smarter. Add your logo and an NFC tag that opens to your website with one tap. Waterproof, inner padding, and now a forever business card.
Just the thing for your ring. Scan the QR code seen here to learn more about Ring Thing or place your order. Follow Ring Thing on Instagram at ring_thing_ or go to our website, ringthing.com.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA-Global-TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.